Turning to other news now on this election day. To the north in Delphi, the Delphi murders trial. Multiple people taking to the witness stand today,
including a digital forensic examiner who shared brand new information in court this afternoon.
Samantha Johnson is heading up our coverage live in Delphi tonight. And Sam, I know it's been a long day for you. You've been in the courtroom all day today. Let's start with this new digital information that came out today.
Yeah, and Ann and Felicia, this is the most new information too I can give you. It comes from a former FBI forensic examiner. Her name is Stacey Eldridge. She was on the stand today for almost 2 hours inside the courtroom. She says she reviewed digital data pulled by Indiana State Police from Libby German's phone around the time the girls went missing. But this examiner says she went digging and she did her own data too, and she found even more information. So she says using the same data state police had access to years ago, she discovered someone inserted a headphone jack into Libby's phone at 5:45 p.m. on February 13th. That headphone jack was then removed at 10:32 that same night. And Eldridge says just milliseconds before the headphone was inserted, Libby's phone was ringing. So what's the big deal here? We know Libby's phone reportedly stopped tracking movement around 2:32 on the 13th. And we've known the phone was not responding to cell towers from 5:45 on the 13th until the early morning hours on the 14th. But this information about the headphones is the first time we've ever heard about someone else possibly interacting with Libby's phone. Now, the defense went on to say if the phone was stationary, if it was at the crime scene this whole time, why would it disconnect from cell service for hours and then suddenly reconnect at 4:33 in the morning the next day? Well, Eldridge said she found no digital evidence of what could have gone wrong, and she suggested something external happened. She said either the phone was moved or the signal was blocked. Now, today inside the courtroom, the Carroll County prosecutor, Nicholas McLeland, he pushed back a little bit. He said, had you ever been to the crime scene? Do you know what the cell service was like the day that we are talking about this data, February 13th, 2017, alluding to the fact that they likely had poor cell service, and maybe it's more feasible that the phone just lost service for all of those hours too. Anne-Marie and Felicia, one of the most important topics that came out of today's testimony from Allen's attorneys.
So that's really interesting because it seems like you'd have to have some expertise to block the signal from a phone, wouldn't you, Sam?
Yeah, and she was asked about that too. The prosecutor asked, well, wouldn't someone have to have some kind of device or some kind of tool with them to help block that? And she said, yeah, they likely would. So there was a little bit of pushback in some of her testimony earlier today. It's also important to mention that was just one of the witnesses the defense called today. We also heard from a psychiatrist who specializes in solitary confinement, memory, and false confessions. And then we heard from a forensic scientist who works in firearm and crime scene reconstruction, a few of the very key issues that have been brought up time and time again in this case. We'll break down what else we've learned coming up tonight at 6.
All right, our coverage continues throughout the news tonight. Sam, thanks so much for joining us live from Delphi at this hour.
Okay, a big day of testimony for the defense there. We are going to have more on what happened today in our Delphi debrief. You can catch it weeknights at 10 p.m. on WTHR Plus, and it's free on Apple TV, Fire Stick, as well as Roku.